This is Dr. Carroll with another classes video. So let's look at an example class. If we have a money class, and that's designated with the keyword class and then the data type name that we get to choose, we have that as the syntax, and then we have the curly brace, close curly brace, and then don't forget the semicolon. That defines the money class here. And you'll notice there's two sections. There's the public section and there's the private section. So the private has the private data members and the public has the public members. In this case, they're all functions, public member functions. And then that defines the class. Let's look at the driver code for this. So notice we do a #include money.h to get the definition of that data type so that we can use it here. So the compiler says, oh, I know what the definition of money is. And so now this instantiates an instance of class money. So we have a money variable here, a money object. That allocates memory. And we do it 3 different times. Now that we have an object, we can call member functions on it, otherwise known as methods. For example, the initialize method to pass in $10.59. Now this is for money1 variable. The money1 variable, it doesn't get confused with any other variables. This is just for the money1 variable. Now this initialize function is called, and it sets dollars to 20 for money2 and cents to 70 for money2. And we can use the other member functions, the get dollars. That's going to get the $10 for money1. This is going to get the 59 cents for money2. Similarly for money2. Then we could even call money1, or to have the object, we can call add on money1, pass it money2. So we could pass classes as objects. And then if you remember, add returned a money type object, and that's going to be copied over into money3 here, and then we can display the results. Let's look at the implementation. So here we have the implementation. Notice again we do #include money because the second word here in this file is money, and it needs to know, oh, what is that? Where's that defined? Then we have the scope resolution operator to say, hey, initialize belongs to the class money. And so that way we can get dollars and cents. Notice they're not defined anywhere in this file, but they are defined at the class level. And so including money here and saying that this is a member of the money class, it all works out. Okay? And there we have it. So now let's see what that looks like in terms of the instance. So we have 3 instances of money classes. Here we have money1, and the circle represents the object. And notice safely protected inside of there is the private data. And it's set to $10.59. And then we have the interface here of the public functions, or the methods here, which allow us to get at the private data. You'll also notice that the money 1, 2, and 3 look very similar. They came from the same blueprint, but they each have their own separate value. And remember, money 3 was the result of adding these two together and getting a new one from there. You'll also may notice we have const on some of these functions, but not all of them. So this one here, it modifies the private data member, so you cannot have const. Whereas these do not modify, it returns copies of it. And this doesn't modify its own, it modifies another one, so that's okay. And so we can put const on those. So when a member function does not modify the private data members, use the keyword const in the function heading. What that does is it allows the compiler to enforce that this is what will happen, which is following good software engineering principles. Okay. Now that we've talked about multiple files, let's talk about how they are compiled. So we mentioned we have the header file with the class definition money, and that's in money.h. We also had the driver code, which in main, and we did pound include money, so this code was included here after the preprocessor does that. We also had the implementation file for money, and that also included money.h, and so we include it here. Then we need to compile these and then link them so that we can have an executable. So we compile the driver code, and on a Unix-based machine it defaults to .o for the object file. And so the compiler does that and produces a .o file. But notice it doesn't know about the implementation yet of the money class functions. For example, it doesn't know the instructions for add or get dollars and things like that. So we have to compile this object file, and then we combine them, and the linker then says, hey, here's the definition of add, here's the definition of get dollars, etc. And so then and only then can we have the executable, and I'm saying it by default is money driver here. Actually, by default, it's a.out on a Unix machine. So that's how it all works together when compiling and linking when you have multiple files. And now that we've talked about including multiple files, we need to protect against inclusion of multiple header files, okay? So if you have client code that uses class A and class B, and class B uses class A, or we could say includes, then you need to guard against multiple inclusions. And you'll know that you have to because the compiler will complain about redefining class A in this example here. And that's ambiguous and it won't allow for that. So let's see what this looks like to help motivate it with an example without include guards. We have class A here, and the body of class A is irrelevant. We don't need to know it, but just there it is, a simple definition. Now in a separate header file, class B, we include class A and with the assumption that we use it later on there. Okay, nothing wrong yet. But now in the client code, notice we are including both class A and class B. Uh-oh, here's where the problem lies. Okay, and so and we have main in the client code. So after the preprocessor handles the pound include directives, this is what we're going to get. Class A, there's no pound include, so it's the same. Class B though, and I've left the pound include there as a comment. Notice it's included class A in there. Okay, so good. That way we have the definition of class A in class B. And then in the client code, this is where it becomes problematic. Notice that we have class A here from our class include class A, but in our include class B, we get a redefinition of class A, which is what the compiler says. And so that's not allowed. So we can use preprocessor directives to guard against this. They're called include guards. Okay, so what you should do is wrap your entire header file with something like the following, and do this for every header file, okay? Pound if not define, and then you give some token that's unique to the entire program, and then we need to end the end if, and do that at the bottom of your file. So if it's not defined, we're going to define it, okay? Now, let's see this in context to see how it works. So now, the same files with include guards. Now it's really class A that has the important one here. We say if not defined class A underscore H, well, if that's not defined, well, then define it. But if it is defined, then just skip over that whole code. That's how you could read that. So that's class A. Class B is similar, and notice it's the entire file here is what we're doing. And then the client code's the same. Now let's look at again after the include directives have been processed. Okay, so class A, there was no include. Class B though, we included class A with its include guard. Here now the client code is where we see the problem. And the problem is right here. We included class A, that's fine. But now when we included class B, we also got a copy of class A, and so this is where it says it, okay? But now when the preprocessor comes through in the client code, it says, okay, if this isn't defined, well then define it. It says, okay, so it defines it there and it moves on. It says if this isn't defined, then define it. It says, okay, we define it. Now when it comes here and it says if this is not defined, it says, wait, it is defined. So it basically erases it, which gives us one definition and only one definition for each class. See that? So in every header file, do an include guard. That's it for this video.